The morning sun streamed through the expansive windows of Denver International Airport as Olivia Bennett navigated the bustling terminal. At 34, she moved with quiet confidence, her blonde hair tucked under a black cap, her athletic frame clad in a comfortable dark gray sweatshirt and light gray sweatpants. A simple silver bracelet on her wrist was her only accessory. To the casual observer, she appeared as any other traveler prioritizing comfort over style for a long flight. Few would guess she was married to Alexander Bennett, the billionaire tech innovator who had recently acquired Summit Airlines as part of his growing transportation empire. Olivia checked her watch, a modest timepiece that had belonged to her grandmother. She had ample time before boarding began for Flight 782 to Boston, where her parents were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. Alexander had offered their private jet, but Olivia preferred flying commercial occasionally. It kept her connected to the real world in ways that wealth often insulated people from death. "Just a regular black coffee, please," she told the barista at the terminal cafe, fishing cash from her pocket rather than using the platinum card tucked away in her phone case. "Heading somewhere nice?" The young man behind the counter asked. "Boston. Family celebration," Olivia replied, dropping her change in the tip jar. "Well, have a great flight." Coffee in hand, Olivia made her way to gate A22. Her eyes lingered on the family sitting together, elderly couples holding hands, business travelers typing furiously on laptops. This diverse tapestry of humanity fascinated her, perhaps because she'd grown up in a modest household in rural Colorado before meeting Alexander at a tech conference where she'd been presenting her environmental research. "Now boarding our first-class passengers for Summit Airlines Flight 782 to Boston," announced the gate agent. Olivia gathered her simple carry-on, a well-worn backpack rather than designer luggage, and joined the short line forming at the priority boarding lane. A businessman in an expensive suit glanced at her casual attire, then did a subtle double take. Olivia was used to these looks. They no longer bothered her. "Boarding pass, please," said the gate agent, a practiced smile on her face. Olivia handed over her phone, displaying the digital boarding pass. The agent scanned it, and her smile faltered just slightly as she looked between the first-class designation and Olivia's casual appearance. "Thank you, Miss Bennett. Enjoy your flight." Olivia nodded and walked down the jet bridge, unaware that her decision to dress comfortably today would soon create a storm that would change Summit Airlines forever. The first-class cabin of Summit Airlines Flight 782 gleamed with luxury, wide leather seats in deep navy blue, polished with accents, and attentive flight attendants serving pre-departure champagne. As Olivia stepped aboard, flight attendant Diane Phillips looked up, her practiced smile freezing slightly at the sight of the casually dressed woman. "Good morning," Olivia said warmly, glancing at her boarding pass. "Seat 2A by the window." Diane's perfectly penciled eyebrows arched slightly. "First class is to your left," she said, her tone carrying a hint of doubt. "Yes, I know. Thank you." Olivia moved confidently toward her assigned seat, aware of Diane's eyes following her. The first-class cabin was half full, with passengers who fit the expected mold. Men in business suits, a woman in an elegant dress, a celebrity chef Olivia recognized from television. She stowed her backpack in the overhead compartment and settled into her seat, pulling out a dog-eared paperback rather than the latest electronic device. "Excuse me." A male flight attendant named Richard appeared at her side, his voice low but firm. "May I see your boarding pass?" Olivia looked up, meeting his skeptical gaze. "Of course." She pulled up the digital pass on her phone again. Richard scrutinized it longer than necessary, glancing between the screen and Olivia's casual attire. "One moment, please." She watched as he conferred with Diane at the front of the cabin, both stealing glances in her direction. Moments later, Diane returned, her expression tight. "Miss Bennett, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to ask you to step off the plane for a brief security check." Olivia's brow furrowed. "Is there a problem?" "It's just a routine check. If you'll follow me, please." Feeling the eyes of the other passengers on her, Olivia gathered her belongings and followed Diane back up the jet bridge. Once inside the terminal, she was met by a uniformed airline supervisor. "Miss Bennett, "We apologize for the inconvenience," the supervisor began, "but there seems to be some confusion regarding your seat assignment." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Confusion? I booked seat 2A in first class." "Yes, but our crew was concerned about your attire. They didn't believe you were a first-class passenger." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Are you implying that because I'm dressed comfortably, I don't belong in first class?" The supervisor shifted uncomfortably. "It's just that we have certain standards, and—" "Let me stop you right there," Olivia interrupted. "Please inform your crew that I am Olivia Bennett, and my—" As Olivia settled into her first-class seat, she noticed a businessman across the aisle casting furtive glances her way, his feigned indifference betraying a clear judgment of her casual attire. She took a deep breath, recognizing the familiar signs of silent appraisal. Soon, Diane returned, now accompanied by Caroline, the lead flight attendant, whose name badge denoted her supervisory role. "Ma'am," Caroline began, her tone professionally neutral but cool, "there appears to be some confusion regarding your boarding pass." Olivia placed her book down. "There's no confusion. I'm in seat 2A, first class." Caroline's smile tightened. "Our system occasionally makes errors. This is a first-class cabin, and you don't think I belong here?" Olivia interjected, her voice calm yet direct. A flicker of discomfort crossed Caroline's face. "Not at all. We simply need to verify." "You've already verified my boarding pass twice," Olivia pointed out. "It clearly shows I'm assigned to the seat." By now, other first-class passengers were observing the exchange with undisguised interest. Richard stood nearby, arms crossed, his expression suggesting familiarity with such situations and an expectation of their usual outcome. "Perhaps you were upgraded accidentally," Diane suggested, her tone implying the improbability of such a scenario. "Perhaps I purchased a first-class ticket," Olivia countered. "Is there a dress code for this cabin that I'm unaware of?" Caroline's professional veneer slipped slightly. "No official dress code, but our first-class passengers typically present themselves in a manner that reflects the premium experience." "I see," Olivia responded, her voice steady. "So it's not about the ticket I purchased, but rather how I look." A distinguished older gentleman across the aisle cleared his throat. "I've flown in sweatpants in first class many times. No one's ever questioned my right to be here." Caroline flushed. "Sir, this is between our staff and the passenger." "It shouldn't be happening at all," he replied, returning to his newspaper. Diane leaned closer to Caroline, whispering something. Caroline nodded and turned back to Olivia. "Ma'am, we have a full flight today and need to ensure all passengers are in their correct assigned seats. Our system shows this seat should be occupied by an O. Bennett." "That's correct," Olivia said. "Olivia Bennett." "Do you have identification to verify that?" Richard asked, his tone suggesting he believed he'd caught her in a lie. Olivia maintained her composure, though her patience was waning. "You've never asked any other passenger to prove their identity after boarding." "The gate agent verified my boarding pass." "It's standard procedure when there are discrepancies," Caroline insisted. "What discrepancies?" "Besides the fact that I'm not dressed the way you think I should be." The tension in the cabin was palpable. Other passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One woman whispered to her companion, loud enough for Olivia to hear, "Is she bought the ticket? What's the problem?" Caroline's expression hardened. "Ma'am, if you cannot verify your identity, we'll need to reassign you to an economy seat." Olivia sat straighter. "I can verify my identity, but I shouldn't have to. No one else in this cabin has been asked to do so." "Miss Bennett, if that's who you are," Richard said with barely concealed condescension, "we're simply following protocol." "No," Olivia replied firmly. "You're following your biases. If I were wearing pearls and a designer outfit, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Caroline's professional smile vanished entirely. "This is becoming disruptive. Either show identification or we'll need to move you to economy class." Olivia noticed the other passengers watching, some with sympathy, others with detached amusement, witnessing the daily theater of air travel unfold. She could end this instantly by revealing who her husband was. But that wasn't how Olivia navigated the world. She had never used Alexander's name to gain advantages or special treatment. "This is discrimination," Olivia stated clearly. "I purchased this ticket like everyone else." "Ma'am," Caroline's voice turned frosty, "we need to complete boarding. Your options are to verify your identity, move to economy, or deplane." The injustice of the situation burned, but Olivia recognized the impossible position. Making a scene would only delay the flight. For everyone to... "Fine," she said finally. "I'll move, but I want your names and employee numbers. This isn't over." Richard smirked slightly. "We'll find you a seat in economy and provide compensation for the fare difference." "I don't want compensation," Olivia replied, gathering her backpack. "I want accountability." As she stood, she noticed sympathetic glances from a few passengers, while others studiously avoided eye contact. The older gentleman who had spoken up earlier shook his head in disgust. With an escort that felt more like an expulsion, Diane led Olivia through the premium cabin toward economy. Passengers in business class watched curiously as she passed, hushed whispers following in her wake. Olivia held her head high, refusing to show how deeply the humiliation cut. "Here you are," Diane said, gesturing to a middle seat in economy. "We apologize for any inconvenience." Olivia looked her directly in the eyes. "No, you don't, but you might soon enough." Alexander's gaze softened as he looked at Olivia. Despite their affluence, she remained grounded, a quality that had drawn him to her. She perceived the world without the distortions of privilege. "All right," he agreed, checking his watch. "The meeting starts in an hour. Are you sure about this?" Olivia nodded. "Absolutely. And I'll be wearing exactly what I wore yesterday." Summit Airlines headquarters. The executive conference room buzzed with anticipation. Board members, department heads, and key staff filled the space. Caroline Reynolds, along with Richard and Diane from a first-class cabin crew, sat near the back. Their invitation to this high-level meeting was unexpected, but they assumed it pertained to their commendable performance metrics. "Maybe they're finally creating that elite service team," Richard whispered to Diane. Diane nodded, adjusting her uniform. "I heard the new owner is attending. This could be a significant opportunity." Caroline hushed them as Patricia Winters called a meeting to order. "Thank you all for being here," Patricia began. "Customer experience is the cornerstone of our brand at Summit Airlines. Today, we'll review our quarterly performance metrics and discuss improvement strategies." The room quieted as the door opened and Alexander Bennett entered. Tall and commanding, he exuded the confidence of someone who had built a tech empire from the ground up. "Mr. Bennett," Patricia said, "we're honored to have you join us." Alexander nodded and took his seat at the head of the table. "Please continue." Patricia proceeded with the presentation, highlighting positive aspects and carefully framing areas of concern. Alexander listened intently, occasionally jotting notes in a leather-bound notebook. "Now, I'd like to highlight our bright spots," Patricia continued. "Our first-class service on transcontinental routes has maintained a 92% satisfaction rating, well above the industry average. We have members of that team here today." She gestured toward Caroline, Richard, and Diane. Alexander looked at them, his expression unreadable. "In fact," Patricia added, "I've asked Caroline Reynolds, our senior first-class cabin manager, to share insights about their approach to premium customer service." Caroline stood confidently and approached the front. "Thank you, Patricia. At Summit Airlines, we believe the first-class experience begins the moment our passengers step on board. We're trained to recognize and accommodate the needs of our premium travelers who expect and deserve a certain level of service." The door to the conference room opened quietly. "We carefully attend to every detail," Caroline continued, unaware of the new arrival. "From the way we address our passengers to ensuring that the first-class cabin maintains its exclusive atmosphere." Her words faltered as she noticed Alexander's attention shift. Caroline turned to see what had interrupted her presentation. Standing just inside the doorway was a woman in the dark gray sweatshirt, light gray sweatpants, and black cap from yesterday's flight. Recognition dawned on Caroline's face. followed swiftly by confusion. Richard and Diane exchanged alarmed glances as they too recognized the passenger. Alexander stood. "I apologize for the interruption," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I believe some of you have already met my wife, Olivia Bennett." The conference room froze in shock. Caroline stood at the podium, her professional composure cracking. Richard and Diane seemed to shrink in their seats, their faces pale. Executives and board members looked between Alexander, Olivia, and the flight attendants, trying to piece together the unfolding drama. Simple flying. "Your wife." Patricia Winters finally managed to say, "Yes," Alexander confirmed, his tone deceptively casual. "Olivia flew from Denver to Boston yesterday on our airline, in first class." Each phrase felt like a hammer. Olivia moved to stand beside her husband, still dressed in the exact outfit that had deemed her unworthy of the seat she'd paid for. The silver bracelet on her wrist caught the light, the only hint of luxury on her person. Perhaps, Alexander suggested, Caroline was about to explain Summit Airlines' approach to recognizing premium travelers. "Please continue." Caroline's mouth opened and closed, no words emerging. Her carefully constructed presentation about first-class service excellence now lay in ruins. Diane stared at the table, while Richard's earlier smirk had transformed into dread. There must have been a misunderstanding," Caroline finally stammered. "A misunderstanding?" Alexander repeated thoughtfully. Interesting choice of words. "Olivia, would you characterize yesterday's incident as a misunderstanding?" Olivia stepped forward. Unlike her husband, whose controlled anger simmered beneath a professional exterior, she projected calm purpose. "What happened yesterday wasn't a misunderstanding," she said, her voice clear. "It was bias in action. I was judged not by my boarding pass, which was checked multiple times, but by my appearance." She looked directly at Caroline, Richard, and Diane. "You decided I didn't belong in first class because I didn't match your image of who deserves to be there. You questioned my identity, something you did for no other passenger. You threatened me with removal from a flight and ultimately humiliated me by marching me back to economy class in front of a full plane of onlookers." A board member cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Mr. Bennett, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No," Alexander interrupted firmly. "This is precisely what this customer experience meeting should address. But let's be clear, I'm not here as an angry husband, though I certainly am one." His gaze swept the room. Alexander Bennett addressed the 3 flight attendants with a measured tone. "Your actions yesterday demonstrated poor judgment and clear bias. In many organizations, such conduct would warrant immediate dismissal." Caroline, Richard, and Diane appeared to brace themselves for the expected consequence. "However," Alexander continued, "terminating your employment might offer a temporary sense of resolution, but it wouldn't address the deeper, systemic issues at play." Turning to the assembled group, he announced, "Beginning next week, Summit Airlines will implement a comprehensive anti-bias training program for all customer-facing staff. Additionally, we are overhauling our customer feedback system to specifically identify and address incidents involving perceived discrimination or prejudice." Olivia stepped forward, addressing the flight attendants directly. "The 3 of you will be temporarily reassigned. For 1 month, you'll work alongside our customer advocacy team, directly handling passenger complaints. The following month, you'll serve in the economy class cabin. After this period, if your performance reviews reflect a genuine understanding of these issues, you may reapply for your first-class positions." Patricia Winters found her voice. "I'll personally oversee these changes, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. Furthermore, I believe we should compensate the other passengers identified in your report." Alexander nodded in agreement and addressed the flight attendants directly. "This isn't about punishment. It's about understanding. The true measure of premium service isn't how well you treat those who appear important, but how you treat everyone, regardless of appearance." As the gravity of the situation settled over the room, Board Chair Ella Simmons spoke for the first time. "We owe Mrs. Bennett our gratitude. She's highlighted a significant blind spot in our operations that could have continued to harm our reputation and alienate customers. This is an opportunity for meaningful change. Caroline, Richard, and Diane sat in stunned silence, their earlier confidence shattered by the realization of their actions and the unexpected consequence. Not immediate termination, but something perhaps more challenging, the opportunity to learn and change. 3 months later, Olivia Bennett settled into Seat 2A on Summit Airlines Flight 923 from Denver to San Francisco, dressed in the same dark gray sweatshirt, light gray sweatpants, and black cap. She opened her book, preparing for the 5-hour journey to a climate research conference. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennett," said a familiar voice. "May I offer you a beverage before takeoff?" Olivia looked up to see Richard standing beside her seat, professional and attentive. His eyes held none of the condescension from their previous encounter. Instead, there was something that looked remarkably like respect. "Just water for now, thank you," she replied. As Richard placed the water on her armrest, he hesitated. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm not sure if you remember me." "I remember you, Richard." He nodded, acknowledging the impossibility of being forgotten. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "These past 3 months have been educational." Olivia regarded him thoughtfully. "How was your time in customer advocacy?" "Humbling," he admitted. "I had no idea how many passengers felt dismissed or judged by our actions. Things I never even thought about. Little comments or assumptions. They noticed everything." "People usually do," Olivia replied down the aisle. She spotted Diane assisting an elderly man in casual clothes, her manner patient and attentive as she helped him stow his worn duffel bag in the overhead compartment. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. "The training program you and Mr. Bennett implemented has changed things," Richard continued. "Not just procedures, but how we think about our passengers, about people in general." "I'm glad to hear that." Richard straightened, returning to professional demeanor. "Enjoy your flight, Mrs. Bennett. If you need anything at all, I'm here to assist." As he moved to serve other passengers, Olivia noticed Caroline in the galley, efficiently preparing for takeoff. Their eyes met briefly, and Caroline gave a small, respectful nod. Not the exaggerated deference of someone afraid for their job, but the genuine acknowledgement between people who had moved past conflict to understanding. The changes at Summit Airlines extended far beyond these 3 flight attendants. The anti-bias training program had been implemented company-wide, from check-in counters to executive offices. Customer satisfaction scores were climbing, and employee morale had improved as staff felt empowered to treat all passengers with equal respect. More significantly, other airlines had taken notice. Summit's new approach to inclusive customer service was becoming a model in the industry, challenging long-held assumptions about how premium service should look and feel. As the flight reached cruising altitude, Olivia gazed out the window at the patchwork landscape below. She thought about how a single moment of injustice had catalyzed meaningful change, not through vengeance or public shaming, but through the harder, more lasting path of education and accountability. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "How's the flight?" She smiled and typed back, "Different. Better." 2 rows ahead, a young woman in ripped jeans and a vintage t-shirt laughed with her companion in the first-class cabin, receiving the same attentive service as the business executives around them. No second